Welcome to episode 78 of New Hampshire Knits, a knitting podcast coming to you from the gorgeous state of New Hampshire, where our state motto is knit for your dye. Today is Friday 27th, and I'm your host, Corinne Clare. Did you catch that? Yes, I'm Corinne, and I've been known as Clare since New Hampshire Knits started, but in truth that is my middle name. Since starting the Woolly Thistle, I've had to use my first name when entering into business deals with suppliers. So I found I was juggling two names, and really that's silly. I think that I'm just Corinne or Claire or both. Corinne, Claire is fine. Claire is fine. And if you can only think of me as Claire because that's how you've known me, that's completely fine with me. But now you'll know if you hear Corinne that it's me too. A very ridiculous situation, but hopefully now you'll know who you might be hearing about when you hear the name Corinne. Claire is just so much easier to say as well, because the way I say Corinne, I can't really say it the way I used to say it in Scotland anymore because I don't roll my R's like I used to. But back home it would be Corinne. And you might have heard Sarah Fibertrek say my name during our little chat in Edinburgh, and she was really good about rolling her R's for me. I loved it. So yeah, I'm Corinne and I'm Claire. I'm both, and if you want to call me one or the other, that's completely fine, but just know that this is all me. This episode is sponsored by thewoollythistle.com. The Woolly Thistle brings your favourite yarns from across the pond and makes them easily accessible in North America. At thewoollythistle.com, you will find the best of British yarns such as Blacker Yarn, West Yorkshire Spinners, The Knitting Goddess, and Jameson and Smith, to name a few. You will also find yarns from Scandinavia, including Lettlopi, Rauma, Tuku wool, and soon Ullcentrum from Sweden. At the Woolly Thistle, we encourage woolly wanderlust, and we share information about where the wool was grown and milled. We specialise in finding yarn at the source, whether it be on the wild Scottish islands or in the Devon countryside or in the mountains of Wales. We find it and we share it with you. With excellent customer service and beautiful yarns to peruse, you will love shopping at the Woolly Thistle. And remember, that's 2 L's in woolly. So let the Woolly Thistle do the international shipping, so you don't have to. So thank you, new listeners and returning listeners. It's great to have you here. And let's get started, shall we, in this episode. We actually have some stuff off the needles. We have on the needles. We have the New Hampshire Knits Mitten KAL all finished now, and I'll announce the winners. I want to tell you a bit about the Vintage Shetland Project and Fenella yarn. And I have a couple of announcements, and then we'll do the Woolly Thistle update and we'll wrap it up. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Off the needles. I have 2 finished objects after weeks of not having any. This is great. So of course, first off the needles were my mittens for my entry into the New Hampshire Knits Mitten KAL. And I knitted the Christiandatter Mittens by Scandi Work, who is Kristen Drysdale. Beautiful pattern, really loved the pattern. It was easy to follow, and she also had a lovely backstory in there as well as a recipe, so you really get your money's worth from Kristen. And I knitted that using Ovis Etcetera's BFL Massam blend. This was a DK wool, and it was a single ply and very lovely and soft, really lovely, and it was a perfect match for the Christiandatter mittens. So I have 2 lovely mittens off the needles. Observations. Well, it seems that I changed my gauge from knitting the first to the second mitten, which, did any of you find that you have one slightly bigger or smaller than the other? My second mitten was slightly bigger. Now, I don't know why that is, except I started knitting these on the bus to Boston to catch my plane to Edinburgh, and I knitted on my first mitten while I was in Edinburgh, and I can only think that maybe there was just being away and everything, my gauge was a little tighter because the second mitten was knitted all at home and it's pretty much bigger. So not so much so that I can get away with it, but I noticed that my gauge changed. And I think that's the risk. It's an inherent risk of knitting anything that you have two of, with socks or mittens. So I wonder if anybody else had that happen to them. They blocked up beautifully though, and I'm really, really happy with them. And yes, Ullcentrum has very generously offered one of her mitten sets in the BFL Massam. She's offered one as a prize to one of the winners from New Hampshire Knits Mitten KAL. So that is really generous. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so the other thing off my needles, drum roll, I finished a sweater. I finished the Magnolia Sweater, which was in issue 4 of Lina magazine. And really, what's in a name? All these names that I keep getting wrong and changing on you. I'm sorry about that. It seems to be the theme. Maybe we'll call this episode What's in a Name or something like that. But anyway, in Lina magazine, the Magnolia Sweater by Camilla Vad. Really fun, quick knit. I knitted mine in Einrum, which is a strand of Icelandic wool with a strand of Thai silk wrapped around it. I love how this fabric looks knitted up, and I love how it feels. I blocked it last night, so it's not quite dry yet. I haven't put it on blocked, but I tried it on before blocking and it fit, and the fabric was really nice, and I'm wearing it next to skin. I love Icelandic wool. It's a woolly wool, but I don't find it scratchy or anything. I like it, and I'm going to be able to wear this next to skin. And I think with the silk, it just seems to elevate this yarn to a very sophisticated level, in my humble opinion. At least that's what I'm telling myself. I'm going to be sophisticated when I'm wearing this with my jeans. But yeah, so it's a lovely yarn. It's a fingering weight, maybe just a light fingering weight yarn, and I will be knitting more things with it. I actually have the first book that Einrum issued with some really nice, elegant, simple patterns in it. That book's been doing quite well, as has the yarn. So if you're knitting with it, I would love to hear what you think of it. I will be restocking that in some more colors soon, hopefully. So yeah, check that out. But back to the sweater. It was a quick knit. You start with the neckline and you increase for the yoke, and then you put the shoulder stitches on waste yarn and you finish knitting the body. There's no shaping in the body, it's just straight down. But then you quickly start the lace section, which I think gives the piece some shape anyway. And it's a fun, engaging knit in terms of the lace and the baubles. Love doing baubles, very, very nice. And then before you know it, you're doing a lot of twisted rib, which actually I don't mind at all, because now that I'm a continental knitter, that's really no problem at all. I would rather do a twisted rib in the round than knitting the purl stitch for every single stitch in the round, although I can do that now. I can, but yeah, so it was a very quick knit, and then you pick up the sleeve stitches and you just knit down, and before you know it, you're doing the lace. And I did a very long twisted ribs section on that, but that was easy enough. It just took a wee bit of time. And I finished it last night. I sewed in my ends and put it in a bath, and it's drying as we speak, and it's actually a lovely day outside. We have blue skies and a little bit of sunshine, which has been great, because this last week when the kids were off school, we had everything from snow, freezing rain. They might as well have been just dropping rocks out of the sky. It was cold, it was dark and blustery, and just miserable to have 2 young kids off at school while I had to get to work. So yeah, it's good that they're going back to school, and that the weather is finally starting to feel like spring. We've been letting the chickens out and they're loving that. Yeah, so it's good. So all that to say, there's a slight breeze as well, so I think that my magnolia will be ready to wear before the day is done, and I will get some FO pictures up there for you to see. I would recommend this pattern. I think it's a nice easy knit that results in a beautiful sweater, so hopefully it's going to come out just the way I imagine it in my mind. On the needles, so now on the needles I just have 2 sweaters. I have my car knitting, which is the Tidal Yarns sweater, which is a very vanilla little kind of boxy sweater that you can wear over other things, and I'm looking forward to that being done. I'm working my way down the first sleeve, the body's all done, and then I just will have the second sleeve. So that's my card knitting, and it does get some action here and there, which is good. It's like knitting a pair of socks, isn't it? When you're doing sleeves, there are decreases, but only every 6th round, which is not difficult. You know, I always, and I don't know if you do this, I always put a stitch marker in the stitch where I decrease, because then I've got a very clear visual of when I'm ready to do another decrease. I can just count from that stitch marker. And that's a lot better than trying to, you know, find it all the time and missing it. The other thing I do, and I don't know what you think about this, if it's right or wrong, even when the pattern says to knit 2 together on the beginning of the round for that sleeve decrease, I usually tend to reverse it and do slip, slip, knit. So I do a backwards, knit 2 together. And I do that because you can see them more. And that way I can definitely, you know, read my knitting and see that, yep, that was a decrease there. You know, if I forget to put a stitch marker in, or I'm out and I don't have anything for a stitch marker, and I can definitely see it and count on from there when the next decrease is due. Of course, you could do that. You don't have to do that. You could just do it on the other side when you should be doing your slip slip knit, and count from there. But you know what I mean. I tend to do that because it helps me out. And I never really worry. If I knit 7 rounds instead of 6, I just knit 5 rounds the next time. Do you do that too? I mean, we just, life's too short, right? We just got to go with it. So yeah, so that's on the needles and that's in my car. And then I've got the Riddari, or I think it's Riddari. I'll call it Riddari sweater for Jay. And that, now let's see, where am I with that? I've done both the sleeves, and after binding off the Magnolia last night, I picked up the Riddari and I started the body. And as you know, that has a colourwork border around the bottom. So I got to that point where I'm a couple of rows in, and what I really want to do is just power through that colourwork chart so that I can just start knitting mindlessly up the body of that sweater. I'm not sure if there are any increases on that to give it, you know, the more V shape. We'll see. I don't know. But anyway, I'm looking forward to just zooming through that in my Lettlopi. And the body of that's going to be the sort of darker grey colour. And that won't take any time at all. And then I'll be able to join the sleeves and get to the fun colourwork yoke. And then Jay will have to wear it. And it'll probably be July. So yeah, that's knitting up in Lettlopi and it's looking good. I love the sleeves so far and they fit him. They're long enough, so that's good. On the needles too, not quite, but definitely going to get cast on hopefully today, will be my Humblebee Socks, and that's the new pattern by Sarah Pomegranate, my friend Sarah Bauer of Yarns at Yinhu podcast. These are a lovely, lovely sock pattern, and I'm excited to get knitting on a pair of socks. This will be my first pair of socks this year, which is nuts. So yeah, so now I've got 2 sweaters on the needles and I'm going to be casting on that pair of socks. And I'm going to take some time to carefully think about which sweater is going to get cast on next. Definitely a sweater. I'm really enjoying my sweater knitting, and I've finished 3 sweaters this year now. Now 2 of them were started before the start of the year. That would be my Lovage, which was essentially knitted twice, and I just finished that in time for Edinburgh. And then my Siri sweater, cardigan actually, I finished that in time for Edinburgh. So, and that might have been cast on this year. I can't remember when the start of the Blacker KAL was. I think it was at the start of the year. So yeah, so I'd finished those two and now finished my Magnolia, and I don't think it'll be long before one of the two sweaters that I have on the needles currently will be finished. So I want to think hard about the next sweater I cast on, and there's lots of competition for that, and I'm going to keep thinking and I will let you know what I decide. Next up is the New Hampshire Knits Mitten KAL, and I want to tell you who the winners of all of the prizes are, and I will also have this up on the Ravelry group in the thread for the New Hampshire Knits Mitten KAL. And I'm going to tell you the names, the Ravelry names of the winners. Okay, starting off with the patterns from the designers. Thank you so much, designers. PK Schwab offered a free pattern at the end of the KAL, and the winner of that was post number 88, BLB. Well done. Congratulations. NG Vandevert offered a pattern prize at the end, and it actually is her prize Day of the Dead. And the winner of that is LK Lawson Knits, number 109. Barbara on Ravelry is a designer, and she offered a pattern at the end of the KAL, and number 26 won that, and that's Hey Carrie Ann. Hey, that's awesome. And then Zigzag Stitch offered two pattern prizes at the end, and Jaja won that, number 90, and number 76 won one, and that's Orion. Congratulations. Erika Mount offered two pattern prizes at the end, and number 43, Flying Finn, won that, as well as number 14, Cabby 0216. Congratulations. Tori Rowe offered a free pattern at the end, and number 35 won that. That's Windy Brook Spins. A special thank you to P4 Chen, our friend Patricia, who offered a set of her mitten blockers right at the beginning of the KAL. That was our cast on prize, and they've already gone out to the winner, but thank you, Patricia, for that. Piniguri kindly offered her ebook, Fire Fun Fleur Ogin Herriman. Is available in English, I hasten to add. And number 125 is the lucky winner, and that's No Scrubs 58. Congratulations, and thank you, Piniguri. Christian Drysdale of Scandi Work offered 3 copies of her ebook, Norse Knits, and I actually have this book, and I've knitted a couple of sets of the slippers out of it. It's a great wee book. So we have 3 winners. Number 48 was Emma Birdwhistle. Number 3 is Kathy in Iowa, and number 40 is Indigo Night Owl. So congratulations, you 3. You will be getting your ebooks through the Ravelry at some point soon. And then Ovis Etc. offered the mitten set out of BFL Massam, and because that kind of arrived late, I forgot to pull for that, so I will draw a winner for that, and it will be up on Ravelry. But thank you so much, Ovis Etc. And then the Woolly Thistle also offered 3 prizes. The first prize of $50, and then 2 $25 gift certificates. Well, the $50 is a gift certificate. I'm not giving you cash. So let's see. Winner of the first $25 gift certificate is number 8, and that's Heather 01851. Well done, Heather. Congratulations. And the next $25 gift certificate goes to number 103, who is North Coast Chris. Well done, North Coast Chris. And I love your Ravatar picture. You're wearing one of Marie Wallen's sweaters. Is it Yell, or is it one from before? It's gorgeous anyway. And drum roll, please. The winner of the $50 gift certificate is number 114, and that is Laura O'Donnell. Congratulations, and I'll be in touch about them. Lovely Skandier also offered some prizes, but I'm just waiting to touch base with her before I announce them, and they'll be on the Ravelry thread. So there's still a few prizes to be announced, but that is the bulk of them. Thank you so much to the designers Erica May, Barbara, Zigzag Stitch, E-Mount, Tori Rowe, Spilly Jane. Spilly Jane gave away 2 pattern prizes at the end. Number 34, Suli Salo, wins one, and the other goes to Mrs. Naughty Knits. Congratulations. And who else? Oh, yes. So I started with PK Schwab. So thank you, PK Schwab and NG Van de Vert. Thank you, all the designers, including P4 Chen, Piniguri, Christian Drysdale of Scandiwork, and Ovis, etc. Thank you all for your participation. This KAL wouldn't happen without you. And I know that the knitters really appreciated the prizes and the knit along in general. It was such a fun knit along. It was the biggest knit along yet for the New Hampshire Knits Mitten KAL, 3rd year running. And of course, we're going to do it next year. So I hope to see you all knitting again there next year. So thank you so much, everybody, for participating in whatever way you did. I have a quick announcement. You will have seen these gorgeous pins on Instagram, I'm sure. One of them says Knitrovert. It's a blue flag. It says Knitrovert, which is very clever. And the other is Member Maker Community. And this is from Celtic Cast On, who is Kelly, and Mars, who is Hey Brown Berry. And they've gone into partnership to bring a maker's market. And it's a joint venture to create high quality collectible merchandise for makers by makers. What we love most about this community is that it is inclusive, yet so diverse. This set of collectible pins is one way for us to capture that and share it. And I think this is lovely. So thank you, Kelly and Mars, for these pins. And I will be sure to capture them on Instagram very soon, if I haven't already. And go check them out. Follow them on Instagram. See what they're doing. It's at Makers Merch. So the Woolly Thistle is doing great, and as always, I really appreciate your shopping with me and telling your friends about the shop, as well as sharing on Instagram when your order arrives. This all helps immensely to get the word out and helps me to continue growing the shop and getting in the yarns you want to knit with. So thank you so much. The Woolly Thistle will be vending for its very first time at Squam Art Fair in New Hampshire on Saturday, June 9th. So that's coming right up, and I've got a lot to think about as to how to do that. I'm not used to packing up my shop and taking it somewhere. I'm kind of excited to do it, and we'll see how it goes. It's just a few hours of a Saturday evening at Squam, and check it out and grab your friends and come on over. I'll try and have the yarns you want to squeeze there with me. In fact, that's a great idea. Why don't you, if you think you're going to go to Squam Market, why don't you let me know what yarns you'd like to see? And that way I'll make sure to try and bring what people want to see. That would be helpful to know, because I've got a lot of stuff here and I can't bring it all. So let me know what you want. New items that are finding their home here at the Woolly Thistle. Well, you know that John Arbon Knit by Numbers is coming, and it's almost here. I have 3/4 of it here. This is 108 different shades, people. This is the biggest line that I've had to date, and I have all of it. And the way they do it is basically 18 colours, and then they have a gradient of 6 shades within each colour. But that makes 108 different choices for you knitters and crocheters. I hear this is a very popular yarn with crocheters, so I am thrilled to have it here. And of course, now that most of it is here, I am ogling it and squishing it, and I need to get it on my needles because it is gorgeous. Let me tell you about it. It's 100% organic merino, and it's raised in the Falkland Islands, the British Falkland Islands, which is a little tiny group of islands down off Argentina. So this is merino grown down there, but it's milled at John Arbon, which is a lovely mill, old-fashioned mill down in Devon there. And I've stocked his Exmoor sock yarn since the shop opened. It's actually out of stock now because they don't have it in stock themselves. And I hear it's being revamped with a new colour palette and everything. So I will definitely be jumping on that when it's ready. But for now, we have Knit by Numbers coming. It's a DK weight. It's non-superwash. It's bouncy and soft with a huge squish factor, and I'm really excited about it. I will be working to get pictures up, and I actually have been doing some gradient type photos on Instagram. So if you're interested, have a look there. But this is just spectacular. Whether you want to knit color work, or whether you want to knit a sweater in one color, or you want to do some gradient work, it's all good. Also coming to the shop, and I really need to get this in because it is gorgeous yarn, straight from the farm. This is Faithmead from Wales, and this time I got a selection of bases or fleeces from her that she'd spun up. We've got Corriedale, Leicester, long wool, and things like that. So I'm hoping that I'll get that up in the shop maybe by the time you hear this, so do go check it out. Her stuff always sells very quickly, so be ready. And if you're interested in ordering some, then do that. Ullcentrum from Sweden is currently on its way over from Sweden, and this will be a worsted weight yarn, which is great because I don't have a lot of worsted weight yarn. And this is a 3-ply, very round, bouncy yarn. And actually, Sarah of Fibre Trick has a lot to do with me ordering this because she is knitting her Oa sweater in it. Oa by Kate Davies is the all-over colourwork hoodie that Kate issued in her last book, probably about a year ago, and it's a lovely sweater and it is knitting up so nice in this yarn. So that got me thinking and got me shopping myself. So that is coming, and I'll let you know when that's in, but definitely keep your eyes open for it. Fenella and Excelana is coming, and this is yarn from Susan Crawford. This is yarn grown and spun right around her farm up there in Lancashire in England. And of course, Susan Crawford is the esteemed designer, author, publisher, researcher from England, and she just published the Vintage Shetland Project, which I am stocking here in the shop. We've had our first round of pre-orders. They came and went, and I'm taking more pre-orders now as a large order comes over on a big boat from England, and it'll be docking in New York any day. And then we've got to get it up here after getting it through customs. The book is gorgeous. I have been reading it, and I got to tell you, it reads just like Susan's chatting with you. Very easy reading, fascinating stuff, wonderful chapters, and just, so much to learn and know. And she's really delved into the history and the history behind the pieces, not just the Shetland history, but the history of how these pieces came into being and how they were made and who made them. And some of these people are forgotten by history, but she has managed to dig up some lovely stories and interesting tidbits. So it's all in the book. It's a gigantically big book. It weighs almost 5 pounds. It's hardbound, beautifully photographed by Susan. All the pictures were taken on Vela, which is a Shetland island, and her daughter models some of them too. So it's a lovely family affair, and it really, I think, is a labour of love for Susan. And now it's here, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I also have A Stitch in Time, volumes 1 and 2, which are her 2 previous books that she wrote with Jane Waller. Those 2 are quite big books. They're not as heavy as the Vintage Shetland Project, thankfully, but they're lovely hardbound books, beautifully illustrated and well written again. So all of those are available for you. Oh, and getting back to the yarn. So Fenella, several of the patterns in the Vintage Shetland Project are written with Fenella in mind, and Fenella is a beautiful yarn. I have some in my little paws right now. These are vintage inspired yarns that knit up at the gauge of the original pattern, which you really can't do so well today with the yarns available. So she created this yarn specifically to knit up the vintage weight, and so that you'd have a perfect garment. And they're also very reminiscent or accurate actually to the historical colours that were used back then in the 1920s, 30s, 40s and 50s. So I've got it in my hand right now. It's not a tightly spun yarn at all. It looks like a 2-ply, but I believe it's a 3-ply, and it is soft and squishy, and it looks like quite a long wool as well. But this is all made in Britain, spun and grown. Actually, it's dyed in the Scottish borders, which is nice, but it's grown and spun in England. So a truly British yarn from start to finish. and I will have all the shades of Fenella in very soon. I have most of them. I'm just waiting for Susan to get me the last of it. And then I'll also have Exolana, which is our other yarn range, and I'll talk more about that when that comes in. So I think this is a very unique and interesting package. If you're interested in knitting something from the Vintage Shetland, you can do it with Susan's own yarn, which, how nice is that? The patterns in the book are not going to be released individually, so you do have to buy the book. But you're buying so much more than a couple of knitting patterns. You're buying, well, first of all, it's 27 patterns, and they are reconstructed from the original Shetland piece. She tirelessly read these pieces stitch by stitch and recreated them and resized them so that us modern knitters could recreate them in a size that we want, in a construction that would be satisfactory to us. I think in the olden days they used to just hack away at their knitting if it didn't fit quite right, and that's how they created things. Not just steeking, like crazy steeking. And of course, we're not going to do that today. So she's written them in a way that actually works, but you still end up with a garment that's true to the original. So I'm really excited about that. Oh, and a new venture for the Woolly Thistle. For the first time, I am not only selling these to my customers, but I'm selling them to retailers. So I have the distribution contract to sell this book to your local yarn shop. So if you don't want to pay for shipping to have the book sent, although you can get free shipping if you buy a little something extra, but if you don't want to and you want to support your local yarn shop, then tell your local yarn shop to get in touch with me, and I will happily send them an order of the books for them in their shop. It's getting great attention already, and I am receiving orders from retailers, so thank you for those. But yes, definitely, if you want your LYS to stock this, just have them get in touch with me and I'll happily do that. What else is coming? Oh, West Country Spinners, Country Birds and Spice Rack, my old faithfuls. They're really low in stock right now, so I have ordered more and they're on their way. So we will have that lovely sock yarn back very soon if it's not back already. And Hiya Sharps has gotten low too, so I put an order in for that and they'll be back in the shop as well. Highlights in stock right now that I want to tell you about: Lioness, DK and 4-ply. I have more of that in stock than I've ever had before. I've gotten more of the different colours and I've got both weights. This is beautiful, beautiful yarn. It's 50% wool, 50% linen, and it only gets better with age because of the linen content. The colours are they're beautiful for spring and summer. They're just lovely, and they're a muted pastel without being too sweet, if that makes sense. And yeah, I definitely want to get knitting. I have used Lioness before. I know what it's like to knit with and I enjoyed it, whereas I'm not a plant fibre person normally at all. I think the high wool content helps with that, but and it's because of my fingers, I like a little bit of stretch in the yarn. So yes, I want to knit something with that, and something maybe summery, floaty, kind of swishy. So yeah, I gotta get my thinking hat on, and that's what I'm talking about before when I was saying I really need to think about what the next cast on is going to be. I need to work it out because there's so much competition for that. Erika Knight, 100 Blue. That's her 100-gram skein of Blue Face Leicester, 100% Blue Face Leicester from Britain and milled in Britain. This is a very, very British yarn, and it is the best BFL I have squished, I want to say ever. And I'm not kidding. I actually just put a post up on Instagram from a lovely customer who's not on Instagram, but she said I could do it. She sent me hers that she's knitting up just to show me, and it is gorgeous. It is really good stitch definition and plumpy. It's a DK weight. So I urge you to look at that. It's new in the shop and it's doing quite well, but I want it to do even better because I really believe in it. I think it's a great yarn. Tuku wool is in great supply. I had my update recently. So lots of fingering, lots of sock. I have the 01 colour in stock, and I think I have all the colours except for maybe 03 or 02. Now I can't remember which one. One of those. It's one of the greys. They just don't have it in stock anymore. But I have everything, and there's also 3 new colors just come in stock. There's a lovely peachy color, which is 34, and then there's 33, which is a nice kind of, it's a blue that's sort of a royal, almost navy blue, but it's not as dark as H27 Tinny, which is a very dark navy blue. It's more bright than that. And also H33. Did I say that before? There's H33 and 33, and they're both blue, but one is heathered, which is what I stock the most of. I stock mostly the heathered range, which you'll notice they all have an H before them, before their number. So I've got the solid 33 and I've got the H33. So check them out. They're in the shop now. And if you're looking for a blue, that might be what you're looking for. Cannot get H27. That's the other one that's out of stock at Tuku Wool. And that's the dark navy blue. Rauma is in good supply, and I've got another order coming in any day now, but it's in pretty good supply. But I'm trying to keep that really well stocked for you because, you know, you're loving it, number one. And number two, there are just so many colors in the range that I want you to have the full choice when you're picking, you know, your color work project or what have you. So yes, Fennel Garn is quite highly stocked. If you want me to get in Strick Garn in other colors, I'd appreciate a little help in deciding which shades I should get. I've got quite a few natural shades in, which I thought would be good for you know, for the body of, say, a colorwork project, or just the body of an entire project. So I've got the naturals in, but if you want me to get some colors for colorwork yokes or just a pop of color, let me know what you'd like. This is their DK weight, and I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, so everything else is good. I've got lots of everything else. Blacker yarns, I'm a little low on things like Tamar, but I hear that is up next at the mill. So as soon as they start running that, I hope to get my hands on Tamar. Tamar, I love that yarn. It is a blend of various long wools. It's got beautiful drape. I knitted my Color Affection shawl with it, and I've worn that thing a lot, and it does not pill. It looks glossy, but it looks woolly, and it's got lovely drape and lovely warmth, and it's quite light to wear as well. So I'm really excited for Tamar when it comes back. I hope it's not too long before it does. Blacker Swan in DK and 4-ply, I have a very little bit in stock. What I have is really all there is. There's not a lot left, and I know that that is in the queue as well at Blacker. I got lots and lots of classic DK and 4-ply, which is great. Gotland is completely out. Oh, the mohair, the Hebridean Mohair is doing great, and I made sure I got lots of that. So, you know, you could knit a sweater if you wanted to. I've got quantities for that, but it's definitely great for just for socks as well, for your nylon-less socks. Yeah, Lettlopi and Plotolopi are in pretty good supply. I did make up a few more kits for the, we don't call it this anymore, the Shibui shawl. It's the Ato shawl now. So I've got a couple of kits of those in stock. Yeah, let's move into the kits. I've been making kits lately. The Peri Fleur kits, I might have a couple in stock when you hear this, but there are more coming. I'm just trying to get all my bits and pieces together, such as the lovely little flower stitch markers and bags. I've got more bags coming from Enviro Tote, who makes my tote bags. And let's see, the Burra cowl is sold out for now. I had beautiful kits from Berlin Yarn that she had made up. One was the Sea Cast cowl and one was the Macher Wildflower shawl, and both of those went pretty quickly. So I'll see if I can get more of them from Berlin Yarn. The Fair Isle cap kit is, there's a couple of them still in stock if that interests you. And of course, Erika Knight's little cotton baby knits. I've got a few of those little baby knit kits, and they're so adorable. If you have a baby to knit for, that might be the way to go. You just get a kit. It's got the elastic for the waist on the little pants. Buttons are included. All you need is your knitting needles, and you're good to go. Books and magazines in the shop. Just in very recently, of course, is Making 5 Colour, and I've had a lovely look through this. This is such a nice magazine, and it just gets better and better and better. So does Lina too, right? I mean, they're just getting better with each issue. There's a beautiful backpack that you can make in this issue, as well as a lovely crocheted little bag, which I like. Some really nice embroidery. I love the little flower embroidery project bag. That could get me to get my hoop out and give that a go. There's a patchwork quilt in there, which is really doable too, I think. Yeah. Oh, and the Woolly Thistle has a full page ad in here. My first full page ad. So I'm excited about that. There's lots of knitting projects in there, of course, as well. Other books. Oh, well, sort of related to making is the uniform, which is a cardigan pattern by Madder and a tunic pattern by Grainline Studio. And they've brought this out as a packet together as a book. And the sewing pattern is all in the back there. There's lots of variations on the cardigan pattern as well as the tunic. So you can knit and sew these in lots of different styles so that you have this really easy uniform to put on in the morning. It very much appeals to me, and I have kept a copy for myself of that and hope to, get the sewing machine out. My sewing machine is right up here in the shop, maybe 10 feet from me. But do you think I ever get anywhere near it? No, I don't. And it's such a weird thing. Like, I used to sew. My stepmother taught me to sew when I was about 16, and I was able to make all kinds of things. I would sew, back then, coat dresses were really in, like double-breasted coat dresses with a belt, and I would do them for work. I used to make jackets, skirts for work, so I had my own little suits. If I had to go out, on a Friday night and I didn't have anything new to wear, I would rustle something up. So I was taught really well by a very good seamstress how to sew. But like everything, you get rusty. And I haven't done it for such a long time, except for here and there. I would sew up little dresses and things for my daughter when she was wee, but she was always very particular. And she's just, as she is not knitworthy, she wasn't really sew worthy either, I have to say. But the nice thing about sewing is, once you get the sewing machine out and get everything cut, you've got a garment in a couple of hours, right? But I just can't seem to get over the hurdle of having to get the sewing machine out and having to cut the pieces and sizing and all of that. So I'll get there, and I want to get there. But right now, the way my life is, it's much, much easier. And I'm sure you feel this too. It's much easier to grab a pair of needles and get knitting, right? Than having to get the sewing machine out and all of that. But I do want to try and create a space in my time and my life where I could sit down and sew. But the other thing too, I think, is I find sewing quite stressful. Oh, my life is so hard. But yeah, I do. I find sewing stressful because there's a lot of moving parts on the machine and things can go wrong much quicker. Whereas with knitting, it's much more meditative. You can sit down and relax. You can watch TV and you can knit, or you can read a book while you knit and things like that. Whereas with sewing, you're much more focused. And I know I hunch my shoulders because I'm trying to ram things through, and I'm probably using the wrong needle and trying not to stab myself with scissors and all that good stuff. So yeah, I need to get over myself, don't I? Well, maybe I will, and maybe uniform is just the thing, because it's lovely. And I want a uniform that's not just jeans, although you could wear that with jeans too. Anyway, moving on. I've already talked to you about the Vintage Shetland Project, but it's worth mentioning again. Oh, let me pick it up. It's very big. And it's got almost 500 pages with charts, colourwork charts, beautiful patterns, beautiful photography, lovely history too. And gorgeous photography of the island. So I've been reading this at night while I'm knitting away and really enjoying it. It's very accessibly written and it's fascinating and beautiful. It makes you want to knit all the things. It really does. Yeah, so what else have I got going on in the shop? Do you know what? I think that's it. Shall we call it a day? I will be back with you in a couple of weeks. And if you go out, take your knitting. I frequently forget, but don't you forget. Take your knitting when you go out, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye-bye. thank you for listening to New Hampshire Knits. You can find the Ravelry group at NH Knits. You can find me on Ravelry as NHK Claire, on Instagram, NH_knits, and you can email me at nhknits001@gmail.com. And you can find the Woolly Thistle all over the internet at the Woolly Thistle with 2 L's in Woolly.